Balancing thrilling escapes and crushing disappointment is where extraction games generate tension. Mistfall Hunter, almost immediately, distinguishes itself by softening the genre's typical hard edges, ensuring that even failed expeditions contribute to long-term progression. Its earliest moments are when it's most approachable, but spend a few hours in its gloomy grip and a different kind of friction emerges. Progression becomes increasingly tangled in overlapping systems. Solo players are quietly funneled toward group play, and loot rarely feels exciting enough to justify the risks that you're taking. And contradicting that, the risk itself mellows the more you progress, but we're going to get into that later. Still, Mistfall Hunter remains an enjoyable extraction RPG. Yes, it removes much of the genre's traditional frustration, but this isn't as beneficial to the experience as the devs likely hoped. So back to our first impressions though, and another of the game's noticeable distinctions is eschewing its extraction's usual shooting for Souls-inspired combat. It's not as difficult as From Software's typical masochism though, and the wider hitboxes and mid-swing repositioning underline an arcade feel. Combat, on the whole, is where the game shines brightest, with its 6 unique classes bringing genuinely different playstyles, approaches, and flexibility to battle. The heavy-hitting mercenary feels like the ideal starting class, with its straightforward hammer swings crushing opponents in just a few blows. The withered knight sacrifices the mercenary's raw damage for mobility, rewarding frontline pressure. Shadow Strix is quicker still, with a skill set routed in subterfuge and burst damage. The sorcerer commands a devastating area of effect magic, and together with Black Arrow becomes a medium to long-range option that excels in the hands of skilled players. Support class the Seer is next to useless in solo missions but becomes invaluable in group expeditions. Every class packs a 2-weapon loadout, with unique skills tied to each. Individual talent trees unlock your skill's power potential, while a mix of attachable gems and pre-journey tonics shape your build further through a vast range of resistant, restorative, and passive effects. So the idea here is to choose the bonuses which embellish your class's innate skills. So take the Shadow Strix for instance, whom you can shape into a relentless meat slicer by choosing shorter cooldowns and reduced stamina usage. Suffice it to say, there's plenty of room for unconventional experimentation too, with the build options for each class not just presenting a canvas for your imagination, but a range of different problems you'll encounter face to face on the battlefield. As a result, PvP skirmishes can be surprisingly drawn out. While extraction games' greatest annoyances, for casuals at least, is getting shot from distance before you've even raised your crosshairs, through Mistfall Hunter's melee-heavy design, you're encouraged to close in on your enemies, and it levels the playing field significantly. And supporting this, the other thing that the game does well is understands that losing shouldn't feel frustrating. You see, most extraction games punish death severely, but Mistfall Hunter cushions that blow. If you've lost your sharpest tools, combat bags outfit you with mid-tier weapons and consumables, with your on-site auctioneer Pip often gifting you one for free after defeat. The guiding White Crow, who dishes out extra objectives during matches, occasionally retrieves your lost items without the need for a combat bag. Also at base camp, Twig and his mate undertake scavenger hunts for a small fee, while a merchant sells an array of items for a reasonable price. Even dying to bosses is not the end, with a revival system giving you a short window to climb back into your fallen body. These systems mean that even if you're only extracting half of the time, you'll keep moving forward. You'll level up quickly in the early exchanges, unlocking talent nodes and weapon skills. Loot is abundant too, with you finding high-value trinkets easily to sell for guild and blood, which can then be exchanged for stronger weapons and armor. There's always momentum, which will undoubtedly appease many players, but the ease at which you can keep the wheels turning does introduce its own problem. Centering on Pip's auction house, the process is sound in principle. You see, if you have any surplus weapons, you can chuck them into the in-game economy for other players to purchase. But this means the strongest weapons and armor are always available, so long as you can manage a successful extraction with plenty of loot. If you build up a healthy stockpile, there's little frustration when you lose, as you can just buy back stronger. The inherent risk in each expedition is then nullified. The loot-gathering loop becomes a process of gathering items to sell. Likewise, camp upgrades require specific items, but if you're missing anything in your inventory, you can simply buy what you need. The length Mistfall Hunter goes to maintaining your progression is commendable for sure, but it's debatable how meaningfully it can foster long-term commitment. You see, the experience boils down to a numbers game. Loot is fuel for progression, nothing more. The treasure you recover is rarely desirable, and the weapons you find are seldom more powerful than the ones you're already wielding. Stack onto this the multiple extra currencies, which emerge to be spent in a handful of online shops on cosmetics mostly, then the game's progression becomes pointedly addicting. While these overlapping economies aren't unusual for the genre, they nevertheless dilute what Mistfall Hunter does best: weighty, measured combat and satisfying buildcraft. The game consistently respects your time, but through a tangled web of vendors, it becomes less respectful of your attention. Its design devolves to keeping you engaged, with expedition outcomes secondary. Worse still, the game's premium cosmetic offerings leave a sour aftertaste. They are prohibitively expensive unless you're willing to grind for multiple currencies or spend real-world money. And bafflingly, the game doubles down on its devolutions by locking solo players out of the second map. With only 2 maps available at launch, that's half of the experience. Even though you'll struggle to take down elite bosses on your own, solo excursions are somber, contemplative, worthwhile endeavors where you can focus on your own objectives without aligning with a squad's. Make no mistake, team play is still fun and rewarding, but if long-term progress consistently relies on others, then you can't advance as efficiently as possible. Still, whether solo or squadded, Mistfall Hunter's bleak fantasy world is an attractive one to inhabit, even if it rarely surprises visually. Hallow Grove's crumbling dockyards, abandoned industry, and corrupted forests suggest a civilization consumed by the enveloping Gildan mist, lending a grounded sense of place beyond loot chasing. Both maps are pleasingly vertical too, with intertwining paths and elevated vantage points giving a sense of freedom instead of being funneled along. Waypoints are indispensable early on, as objectives often sit at a level above or below you, but navigation soon becomes organic thanks to distinctly characterful areas. The presentation isn't quite as confident elsewhere, however. Music is used sparingly, leaving tense encounters feeling oddly subdued, while enemy sound cues rarely play a crucial role like they do in other extraction games. And despite regular server warnings, latency notifications, and occasional disconnects, moment-to-moment performance was stable and dependable. So, in summary, Mistfall Hunter is a solid showing overall. It recognizes that extraction games don't have to be relentlessly punishing by ensuring every expedition feels worthwhile, whether you escape with a bountiful amount of loot or if you die trying. Combat is thumping, and class experimentation truly feels limitless. Yet, as the hours pass, a growing web of currencies and increasingly group-focused objectives undermine that elegance of its ideas. And that's the frustrating thing. Developer Bellring Games proves that the experience can work as a solo player, with combat, classes, and buildcrafting compelling enough to sustain attention away from its myriad of addicting systems. Mistfall Hunter is good, but by overly softening extraction's tension, it feels an update or two away from being truly remarkable. And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at GamingBolt, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.